Hello, BillWhittle.com members. This is Scott Ott with Bill and Steve, and I've got a question for you. Do you think it's possible for liberty-loving constitutional conservatives to come together in common cause with left-wing transgender activists? Well, I'm just about there. When you hear this story, maybe you will be too. It seems that the TSA has increased the intensity of the pat-down procedure at airports. It used to be that it took a lot more to trigger a pat-down, but now not only is it easier to get a pat-down going through an airport, but you can also get a more intrusive pat-down. For example, previous pat-downs involved when they had to touch your groin or your buttocks or your, what is the other sensitive area? I forget. There's another area, the elbows, that's right, that they would use the back of the hand to do this touching thing. Well, now they're also allowed to use the front of the hand. Now, I'm sure we'll get emails from people who say, I've had the front of the hand job before, so I know that that used to happen as well. But in any case, nominally, they've increased the intensity of these things. And the first hue and cry we hear is not from, people at the Cato Institute. It's from transgender folks who are basically saying, you know what, it was already bad enough that I had to go through this process where I was often demeaned and humiliated by people either in the scanner or in the pat-down process, but now it's even more invasive. I did not know this, by the way. The advanced imaging technology used for that scanner actually requires the operator to designate a sex before they trigger it to scan you. And so if you present as a woman and they press the woman button and it finds an anomaly in the area of your groin that it was not expecting to find on a woman, then you get the secondary screening. And so these are issues that, I'm sure my grandfather never contemplated, but now we have to deal with them. And Stephen Green, I know you're kind of a little L libertarian, not in the Libertarian Party, but and you're not real fussy about things like sexual politics and stuff like that. Are we ready to lock arms with the folks in the transgender community and say, yes, my brother or sister, whatever you happen to be, I'm with you?
I think maybe we are. And I told the story yesterday on the members segment, the backstage segment, about an acquaintance of mine, Denise, from my San Francisco days, who was just this lovely, smart, friendly young lady who, for whatever reason, enjoyed dressing like a male cross-dresser. And it got me to thinking about just this crazy kaleidoscope of Americans we have across the nation. You don't expect the people of San Francisco to be like the people of Provo, Utah, who you don't expect to be like the people of Austin, Texas, who you don't expect to be like the people of Chicago, who are far different from the people of Miami, who are nothing like the people of New York, including all the New Yorkers who moved down to Miami. So it's crazy, this amazing patchwork of people we have in this country, and it's one of my favorite things about it. Even if it's just for the visual variety, it keeps your brain entertained. Just whenever you're walking down a city street, and I love that. But listen, we go to the airport, and we all have the opportunity to be equally offended by these intrusive procedures of the TSA and what they're allowed to do in the guise of security. They haven't caught a single terrorist, a shoe bomber, stopped by passengers, the underwear bomber, stopped by passengers. We aren't accomplishing anything, and we're offending everybody eventually, and maybe that's going to be the next civil rights cause in this country. I don't mean being able to declare that you're genderless, like some court just did for some person who's no longer has a legal gender, but in the sense that we can all be treated not just the same, but with the respect we deserve as Americans.
Well, Bill, it's fascinating because they've actually amped up these procedures because a study done in 2015 found that that in attempts to bring weapons past the TSA, they were about 95% effective of getting those weapons past the screening procedure. And so they decided they needed to make the screening procedure even more intrusive. So hopefully they'll get that down to 92% or something like that. Exactly. But I think if you ask the average transgender person, my guess is they're overwhelmingly liberal, overwhelmingly leftist or progressive or Democrat. And they would be shocked to hear that at least my first response to this story was, good, maybe we'll get some action on our Fourth Amendment rights now. Did you feel the same way, or do you think I'm missing something here?
No, I think that unlike the identity politics of the left, we have a series of political, absolutes. We have a series of political, moral positions, and they're consistent, and we stand there no matter what. And if it turns out that people on the far left, for whatever reason, are standing on the side of liberty, then that's terrific. That's just great. This is not a case about, well, they're opposed to us, we're opposed to them. Nothing like that. This is either right or wrong, what is being done to them. And if it's right, then that's where we want to stand. And if it's right, that's where they want to stand too. So, your allies are the people that, in a perfect world, in the world I try to live in, your allies are people that see the same data that you do and want to stand as close to the truth as possible. So that's something you should always welcome. Look, when I heard that report from a year or two ago that 95% of the fake bombs and guns got past the TSA, I began to realize that the TSA is basically an FDR-type jobs program. I mean, it's employing a standing army of people. It's just huge numbers of people that are employed by the TSA, and it's not serious about security. I suspect that the main thing the TSA does is it makes most Americans feel safe. But if most Americans heard that 95% of the fake guns and bombs got past them, they'd realize that no, all it's doing is giving us a miserable time and showing us that the federal government has the power to do whatever it wants to, including groping your daughter if it feels like it.
Well, and the funny thing is all the fake guns and bombs that got passed, or the real guns and bombs for that matter, are actually in the hands of people who don't pose any threat to the flight.
Of course.
So it's the fake guns and bombs are being smuggled in by actual government contractors who are trying to see how effective the TSA is. The real guns that the TSA has confiscated, there are revolvers and handguns and knives and things like that. They've got basket loads of these things. They were invariably in the hands of people who, inadvertently forgot that they had them or didn't realize you couldn't put them in your, luggage or whatever. None of them were like, hey, we found a terrorist who was carrying a gun. They were all essentially... Yeah, there was no threat, and they have been able to diffuse the lack of threat.
Yeah, so, they're the people, just real quick, they're the people who would have shot the hijacker before they cut the stewardess's throat with a box cutter.
That's right. Instead of going, let's go, and charging down unarmed against guys with knives, it could have been our own guys with knives.
You could have just said, hey, everybody just get out of the way for a second, give me a clear shot. I just want to say one last thing is very important on this issue. A gunshot through the skin of an airplane does not cause people to be sucked out of a hole the size of a dime.
That's good to know.
That's not
Get
what
off
happens.
my plane.
No, you lose pressure pretty fast, and the oxygen masks fall quickly. But the idea that people are just pulled out of this thing is just absolute nonsense. There's a hole in the airplane. The pressure is unequalized, or rather tries to be equalized with the high altitude. The oxygen masks drop, and the pilot has 15, 20 minutes to get it down below 12,000.
Yeah, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't the pilot going to bleed off altitude as quickly as he can and look for a place to land that plane?
Well, in that order. The pilots have a series of oxygen masks that are instantly accessible to them. And they basically, in many cases, they put themselves on. You just put it on and it just tightens up on your face. So basically those oxygen supplies, I want to say 15, 20 minutes, which may not sound like much time, but all the pilot has to do is get the plane down to about 12,000 feet, really 15,000. And the ambient air pressure is enough for people to survive relatively comfortably, and then you find a place to land it.
I live at about 7,500 feet, and I'll tell you, just a weekend trip to the mountains at 10,000 feet is no problem. You get that plane down to 12, people are going to be fine if they're not trying to climb mountains at that elevation, and they're not. They're seatbelted into their seats.
Even if they pass out, it won't kill them or do them any permanent damage.
Bingo.
Yeah, let's rewind the tape. You want Todd Beamer to have a refreshment cart or a handgun? I'll take the handgun every time.
Yeah, or a crossbow or a throwing knife or ninja stars or
I think a flamethrower would be best.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not.
Well, the TSA has been training people already for more than a year on how to deal with transgender people. Okay, so there already is sensitivity training in place supposedly to deal with that. And I've read at least one report of a transgender person that says basically, hey, look, if you don't have a chip on your shoulder about things and you're polite to people, they're polite to you, and just don't go in there expecting that you're going to get extraordinarily uncomfortable treatment. But I can see a situation here for the reasons that Bill and Steve have talked about, where conservatives could get together with people who are, proclaiming themselves to be transgender or, gender nonconformist, as the term that they use, and basically say, hey, look, it's not right for anybody who has not committed a crime, who is not even suspected of committing a crime, to have to endure this violation of their person. And so here's hoping that some of these folks can rally together in common cause and maybe get us restored to sort of the pre 9/11 world, where it was assumed that you were innocent when you got on an airplane unless you showed some signs of being guilty. I want to thank the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible. For Bill and Steve and me, Scott Ott, thank you very much. Keep those shares and likes going. You're the ones making a difference in this world.
And Al-Qaeda just hijacked his key light.
Yes.